Hello everyone, here we are with a best of 3 against MaNa. This is a tournament game that I played yesterday in the EPT DreamHack Summer Masters European thing, whatever it's called. Not quite sure what it's called, but basically what happens is we're in a group stage with 7 people and MaNa was my first opponent. Whenever I will play one of these matches, I'll upload it like this into YouTube as long as I'm allowed to do that. And I'll try to give you guys basically the thoughts that I had while playing. I know a lot of people always find it interesting to talk about tournaments. I obviously won't be revealing too much about my thought process and exactly how I prepared, because I don't want my opponents to get too much wiser when they watch this video, but I can be very in depth about the things that I thought in game. So here we see I'm opening up with a low ground expand against MaNa. Now a 1 gate expand in PvP is something that I've honestly been kind of taught by my good friend Max Pax. He kept beating me with it again and again. I was like, all right, let me just learn it for now. And the thing that it does is that it's very difficult for the opponent to get ahead economically. However, what they can do is they can hide buildings on the map, and they can make it very difficult for you to know what's going on, and in that way kind of force you to build less probes. They can also try all-ins, but in theory all-ins are very holdable with this opener. I got a little bit upset there with myself because I wasn't quick enough in blocking his second gateway. My probe scout definitely was fast enough for that, so that was a little bit of a mistake. Ideally I kind of force him to open up his own base. Now you see I'm chasing him with this probe, blah 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 blah. I'm building a zealot as well, which ideally I cancel or I force out another pylon. If he builds a pylon, this is actually pretty okay for me, if he finishes a pylon at least. Because that means he just invested another 100 minerals in delaying my nexus, which I'm not investing at all. And that's money he will never get back. You see, the moment I see his probe go down to the natural, I immediately go there with my own worker because I don't want him to build his own nexus. I want him to build a third pylon. Right now, I'm not sure what his intention is. If he builds a nexus pre-third pylon, that would be pretty bad for me. I built my own pylon, but rather than finishing it, I decide to cancel it. Because, I mean, I don't want to finish it, I don't want to lose 100 minerals. I throw down a Stargate as soon as possible because I see my nexus is going to be quite delayed after he starts his cybercore block. I do end up running away with my probe, cancelling my pylon, so right now he basically is free to do whatever he wants on his side. He can build a nexus, but usually don't quite have the money for it, especially if they still have a cybercore building at my side of the map. I'm sending out a second probe as I saw that my first probe was being chased, and I throw down a battery and I get a nexus. I think the second stalker might have been a bit much, but I was kind of afraid of a double stalker move out. I'm gonna get an oracle here because I'm pretty sure this isn't going to be something like a gateway all-in. The way that he was playing with these pylon blocks makes it very difficult for him to do a tight gateway all-in. So I felt like, okay, if I scout that there's no nexus here, I can still always cancel my oracle and then go into a void ray. But now that I see this nexus, I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. So what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna get my stalkers into the main base in case he's building an oracle as well, and then I'm just gonna get a second gate. Keep a probe on the low ground in case of adepts, but I'm feeling pretty certain that he's not playing Stargate. It's kind of risky to play Stargate. I made a little bit of a mistake here though. Whenever you play Oracle first and you don't know if your opponent is playing Stargate, you always need to keep 50 energy on your Nexus, so you can recall in case there's a Phoenix. I did not do that. That made this build a lot more risky than it really should have been, and that's kind of a big mistake. It didn't matter this time around because, well, he simply didn't play Oracle. Or sorry, he simply didn't play Phoenix, but it's still kind of a big deal. It's something I gotta keep in mind. So right now I'm trying to figure out what my position is in this game. I see that he has a sentry. I'm trying to do some damage, and I'm like semi-counting his probes. I'm like, okay, this looks fine. I think I'm slightly ahead. Not happy with my probe saturation. It's the first thing I noticed now as well when I went back to that base. It's 2 empty patches, so I want to do that properly. And for now, all I really want to do is I just want to build some units, get my upgrades going, and then hopefully take a third base. Ideally, I figure out whether he has a forge or not. I probably should have revelated here. If I revelate here and see a forge, I can take a third base way faster. Now, I kind of had to wait for him to build his third base before I could get my own. It's very scary to take a third base in this position as the Oracle player if you don't know if your opponent has a forge. If they don't have a forge and they play 4-gate blink, well, you're playing 2-gate forge blink into Nexus and you opened with a Stargate, usually you're not capable of actually holding your third base. You will lose your third base. They can get a third base behind it. Sure, their upgrades are going to be delayed, but they'll just be outmining you by so much, and they'll have so much map control that you tend to lose the game. So not finding the forge in time was kind of bad for me. See, his third gas is late, and it makes me happy because it means he probably hasn't been producing as many probes, and it also means that his income looks kind of weird. Like his gas bank probably isn't that big, and even though usually people say that it's bad to have a gas bank, in PvP it actually tends to be kind of nice. The reason for that is that eventually you do want to build 1 or 2 Archons, and having some gas ready for that is kind of big. Saw the shade of the 2 adepts coming from there. I decided to go in with my Oracle and also just move forward with my Stalkers. Throw 1 more Chrono Boost on that. I semi-trap these adepts and I get them. It was a little bit risky. If he's out on the map, I might have lost the Stalker, but I saw that his Stalker count earlier was very small. He was staying on 2-gate for a very long time, and I had scouted parts of the map for proxy gates on the right side, so I wasn't really expecting anything there. Now, something that could have happened is he could have blinked into the main at that point if he was very far forward on the map. But honestly, if someone plays 2 adepts from a 2-gate opener, the likelihood of him being on the map with his Stalkers is very small, because he's definitely not going to have a Stalker lead. I mean, he just warped 2 adepts off of only 2-gate production. So it was a risk that I took knowing what the consequences could be. I kind of made a risk analysis there and realized, okay, that's probably going to be worth it. I want to be playing 6-gate into a Nexus for now. And I probably want to get at least 1 Immortal before I take my Nexus. However, because I didn't quite get his Watchtower, and I really have no clue what his actual situation is like, I'm really struggling with taking a faster base. So right now I see no gases in his third base. I'm like, okay, he's probably still on 3 gas, 4 gas max. So I actually wasn't sure if this was the correct call, getting this base. But at some point you just gotta build the base, and even if it gets cancelled, at least you tried, you know. So right now I'm trying to get information, and more importantly, I'm also trying to get him to believe that I'm going to be aggressive. So I'm taking his tower, I'm using my Oracle kind of as a tool for him to keep his units at home. I don't want him to keep his units out on the map. His Nexus is a little bit faster than mine, and it doesn't bother me too much. I feel like I'm in a good enough position, and I feel very comfortable in an even mid game or slightly behind mid game. So yeah, quite frankly, I wasn't too worried here. I even start moving out because I have full map vision. Did I already build a stasis ward on the map? I think I have not yet. I was afraid that he was taking out those rocks, and because I was really unaware of my position, because I only have a single sentry, which means it's difficult to scout. I was very afraid to actually make very decisive moves. So I'm constantly moving out, moving back home, moving out, moving back home, basically. Another pylon, my main base. You see that my stasis hit. Now I lose the Oracle. This was kind of sloppy, but yeah. No, actually that was just kind of sloppy, no excuse. I shouldn't have flown over a stasis warded Stalker. These guys still have vision, and he saw my Oracle. And because of that, he managed to just blink forward. That Stalker is now done. And at this point, I decide to go up to a couple of extra gas. I lost my vision on the top side of the map. I send in a fake prism into his main. This is to force some units into his main base. I realize the own vulnerability of my main base. And I decide to build a cannon there as well. Sadly, the fake prism can't really do very much. I'm very upset right now that I don't have vision on the top left watchtower, and also not on the middle of the map. I do know that he knows that I'm here, so it would make no sense for him to do a massive attack onto my fort base, because he would lose his own fort most of the time, way faster, but it feels very scary what I'm doing right now. I built a robo bay and a robotics facility, so I'm really just threatening to win time for these things. Very often in PvP you can be out on the map without actually wanting to do damage. So this prism is more of a tool to pull him back than anything else. After I see this, the lack of workers on his forward base, my position feels very comfortable. I decide to keep my prism alive rather than warping in 10 more zealots. And at this point I'm like, okay, as long as I survive, and if I get to my disruptors, he's probably gonna be on like 5, maybe only 4 gas, which means my disruptors are going to be big. I already have a 5th base on the way. I have disruptors coming out soon, if I wasn't supply blocked, which I'm not anymore now. Yeah, I'm just feeling pretty powerful in this game right now. Even though not a lot has happened, just the threatening moves on the map forced him, or at least mentally forced him, that he couldn't be building a lot of workers and he couldn't get the gases. He also had a tough time scouting and he didn't have a lot of map control. So I feel like this entire game so far, even though I haven't necessarily been very far ahead, I've kind of been in control. And I've been in control because he didn't feel like he was in control. I don't think I actually had much of a right to be like, okay, I'm feeling much better. I'm sending in a Zealot run by, and that Zealot run by is actually going to be pretty cool. Right now I have 2 disruptors. Look at this Zealot run by. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There's 1 worker. I surround the disruptor and bang. That was going to be his first disruptor. So him not getting that is kind of a big deal. Right now I'm just keeping my prism there. And the reason I do that is because A, I don't really believe I can go in at this point. And B, I kind of want to wait for some bigger threat like TTs or something like that. Get 1 big disruptor shot. So at this point he already lost 2 disruptors and I still have 2 alive. I want to go to a more stalker-centric army because against higher disruptor counts, Archon Zealot is really useless. Same with Immortals, by the way. These units really fall off the moment there's more than 4 disruptors. So it's often very scary to play these. I think I shoot my disruptor shots a little bit too quick here. I didn't realize he had this 5th. If I knew, I probably would have pushed here a bit earlier. And I get 1 or 2 good hits on the Archons, but at this point my disruptor count is dwindling. Build a couple more Zealots as a quicker way to reinforce. I blink forward with my Stalkers to make sure that he can chase my other disruptors, but I lost 2 disruptors there. I did get 2 Archons and a couple of other units, and I'm feeling relatively comfortable here. This was a good dodge by him. He did end up still losing those 3 Zealots. That's not the end of the world. I decided to build a couple of extra gateways, and I'm considering even throwing down a Stargate. But I've also figured, hey, he doesn't actually have disruptors, and I have disruptors. Attacking even further into Stargate might not even be necessary. I mean, if I just get 8, 9 disruptors and he has none, what in the world is he going to end up doing, you know? What is the play for him? So I'm trying to not give away the vision on this watchtower. That's very important for me, but my supply is relatively low. So what I decide to do is rather than trying to warp in at home and push that, I just go warp into his main base. Couple of DTs, couple of Zealots, nice little mix of units, and then push forwards towards his 5th base. See a disruptor shot come from the left, which kind of surprises me. And then he's there with his main army as well. He is sadly paying attention, and he actually gets that disruptor shot in the last millisecond. He didn't have blink anymore. That was pretty sick. Now, there is a big Zealot warping going on in the main base. He does have more Stalkers, because I have more, because I have so many cannons from earlier on. These Stalkers aren't great at just running away and shooting at stuff. Like you see, I didn't actually lose that much supply, and now I'm on the hunt. It's very important that I try to kind of kill this army before it gets back home. So I want to cut off his road back to his base. I'm not a big fan of those blink forwards that I'm doing here, because he has more Stalkers, which means Stalker versus Stalker, he's actually usually winning that fight. However, now that the Disruptors are involved, I can just zone him out forever, and I can do really cool things. So, that was a good blink forward. I wanted to check if he was recalling or not. Okay, it didn't look like a good blink forward, but sometimes it doesn't look what it's like. He throws a Disruptor shot at my army. I see, okay, he has Disruptors, but I also know he doesn't have too many. And now I'm constantly paying attention to the minimap, seeing what's happening with his Stalkers, and then... Oh, big hits. Big hits, big hits. I'm just making sure this army can't sandwich me or join up with the other army. So now I'm like, hey, wait a second. What happens if I actually just chase this army with my Stalkers, because you just lost a bunch, and then I zone backwards with my Disruptors rather than the other way around? That is, of course, the weakness of having surrounds as well, is that especially if you have surround that don't consist of zealots, is that I can attack in any direction. I noticed there was a bunch of DTs at my army, and then I noticed a bunch of DTs at my third base. I was very happy with my win, because I'm always very happy with my win. Take a sip of my water. Look at the workers active. I'm happy with those as well. Look at some other statistics. I'm happy with everything, and just feeling good about that first game, right? Nothing too crazy happened there. Nothing too intense. I always was in pretty fierce control of the game. Now, because I'm always a bit nervous, I try to lower my heart rate a bit. Try to make sure that the anxiety goes away. Doing some deep breaths. And then we'll go straight into the next game. Alright, big man. Time to wake up. Slap yourself in the face. And there we go. Second game against MaNa. Now, once again, same plan. I'm going to be opening up with a 1 gate expand here. Yes. MaNa is trolling a little bit. I accidentally misspelled the good luck have fun. I decided to throw one more out there. It's always good to have a good time while you're playing as well. Don't forget that it's just a game. Even if it's a semi-important tournament. Well, probably one of the more important tournaments of the year. And yeah, just gonna be going for a very similar setup here. Try to make sure that I get in a good spot. Maybe hold off something that he does against me. And from there on out, yeah, we'll kind of see what happens. Sending my probot after the gateway. It was a really cool trick here. He scouts very fast. And actually from there on out, he fakes a cannon rush, which means that my first probe scout is going to be a little bit delayed. I kind of like this. I probably still should have sent my first probe out on the map and pulled a second probe to try and deal with this. Well, which I now know to be a fake cannon rush. But it was a nice little play that he pulled, and he really did kind of trick me with that. So it was slightly annoying. Pylon is a little bit delayed as well. So all of that kind of sucks. Need to pull my worker down. Here I have the wrong hotkey for one of my workers, which pisses me off. Accidentally hotkeyed a worker in the mineral line on 2 for some reason earlier. And yeah, it's just a little bit painful. So painful start for me. Now the reason why my fast scout was so important was because I needed to know whether he had a pylon at home or not. So right now I'm checking, hey, he doesn't have a second pylon. And the thing I want to do here is I want to check if he's building any units. So I'm kind of checking his gas count right now. I see how many workers he's mining with. I'm like, okay, it seems like an awful lot of gas actually, especially for a 2-gate opener. So I'm already kind of leaning towards Stargate. Now I see the lack of a cybercore research starting, and he's not building any units. It takes a while to sink in, but at this point I truly do realize, hey, wait a second, this is Stargate. I should have immediately cancelled my warp gate here and build a Stargate. It takes 4 or 5 seconds too long. I also immediately should have sent out another probe. Most likely on the map. I kind of do like that I get one more pylon. I was going to say I don't like it, but looking at the supply, it really was necessary. I kill this thing, which is good. And here I realize I probably just could have sent out my Zealot Stalker there, if I chrono boost another Stalker with it as well. Sadly, I did not do that. If I, however, would have done that and chrono boosted the next Stalker, and then probably could have just full walled this or whatever, so nothing can run by, I would have been in an okay spot. Now what I should be doing is either getting a second Stalker, or I should be getting a battery of sorts. However, I'm not doing any of that. Rather, I get a Void Ray. I get a Void Ray and I full wall. This is not great for me, okay? Because the Stargate is so close, my Void Ray is never going to be in time for the Oracle, and because I only have a single Oracle, I can't actually stop his Oracle from doing any damage. That's a real issue. He's gonna end up getting 4 or 5 workers. The 2 Adepts show up as well, like kind of expected. And at this point, I don't want to say that the game is over, but the game is practically over. It looks really bad for me right now. The next move I should have done is I immediately should have sent my Void Ray towards his Stargate. A, to figure out whether he's getting a second Oracle, and B, to stop it from building. However, I was a little bit too afraid, and I waited a little bit too long as well. So, kind of sloppy. Now I want to go back to the Adepts again, so I'm very indecisive. Not very good movement at all. I'm not happy with my position. And I'm feeling like I'm in a very mediocre spot. Now I see that he's getting phoenixes. I'm gonna try to take out the pylon. See that there's a phoenix there. I'm like, okay, this should be fine. Then I end up recalling this void ray at this point. After I take out that pylon. He already had a second pylon on the way though. So now I know it most likely is going to be phoenixes. These multiple phoenixes. And I'm not quite sure what I'm going to be doing here. It's very annoying to play against this. I have 2 void rays against 2 phoenixes. Now, obviously void rays are winning, but I can't just move across the map here. It's going to be very difficult. I really had no plan at this point anymore. Like everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, and I just got punched in the face. I really just had no plan anymore. It was kind of over, and it's pissing me off, to be quite frank with you. I knew I was in a very bad spot here at this moment, but I really saw no way out. Like I couldn't... The phoenixes gave him so much control, and the fact that I built 3 void rays was so bad for me. I can't do any harassment, while he can harass me very easily. I can't move across the map because I'll lose all the probes to the phoenixes at home, and I can't kill him because of batteries. Like if he fights at home in a battery with phoenix against void ray, he's gonna be completely fine. Then I'll first lose all of my workers, he'll just recall his phoenixes and be fine. Like there's no way for me to make an aggressive move. So he can just take a 3rd base off of 2 gas, and there's nothing I can do about it. He can basically do anything he wants, and I have no clue about it because I don't have any scouting tools, I don't have sentries, I don't have hallucinations, I'm extremely blind, I don't have an oracle, I basically have not a single unit that can do anything for me. And he has a lot of units that can do a lot for him. He has full information with his phoenixes. He has the potential of harassment with them as well. And I'm oversaturating my natural because I don't want to stop worker production. But I also feel like I can take a 3rd base easily. You can see my face is not happy with this. I'm kind of dumb when I play. I also look kind of dumb when I don't play. So I guess not too much of a difference. This was pissing me off. I didn't have enough stalkers to 3-shot yet. With 5 stalkers, you can 3 volley with Phoenix. Sadly, I only had 4, so the Phoenix managed to sneak out. Obviously pissed me off again. Lots of things with me. I see his Nexus timing. I'm actually pretty happy with this. At this point, I realized that maybe I can get a Dark Shrine because he doesn't have a robotics facility. Or if he does have a robotics facility, I ain't seeing it yet. I'm kind of upset that I didn't think of the Dark Shrine earlier, but then again, I also didn't think he'd skip the robo for this long. So can I really be blamed for something like that? I see that he has a Twilight. I'm afraid of charge lots with... I wonder if he saw the Dark Shrine. No shot, right? No shot. I'm afraid of charge lot with Phoenixes. He has a lot of Phoenixes, and if he gets like 10 charge lots, I don't think I can defend this base. So it's something that's a real possibility. I'm gonna semi-split my dudes. But yeah, I just don't have anything really to properly defend, and yeah, I don't know. It's looking really bad for me, honestly. I want to get a couple of pylons on the right side, so I don't need to defend my natural anymore. I just see an Oracle fly towards my natural as well. And now, yeah, 10 Zealots show up, and this is exactly what I was afraid of. Like, I can't really do anything. I can't really move there. Trying to fly back into my battery. I wonder if he has +1. See, I'm a little bit upset by this. My head made a funny move. Yeah, gonna be kiting back, but honestly, this game is pretty over. It's looking pretty poor for me. He attacks a bit too deep. I'm gonna send out these DTs. I'm still hoping he doesn't have a robotics facility and that he walks back a bit too far. I saw this earlier. Now he's gonna see my Dark Shrine maybe? No, it doesn't see my Dark Shrine. He's just gonna go back here though. I think at this point I should have just pulled away my worker, cancelled that pylon. Yeah, and then gone back completely, but I think I did that a little bit too slow. I warp in 1 DT at home as well for a defense. I hold position a couple of workers, and now I start right-clicking workers in the hope that he doesn't have a robo. He does have a robo. That obviously makes me sad. Go into the main base, try to get as many worker kills as possible, but I know at this point there's absolutely no use. I'm like, okay, if I can get into the main base with 1 worker and I can kind of trick him long enough, maybe I can take out his 3rd base with my main army. Sadly, he was slightly too smart, and I actually just need to... I just die here. Like, here the game just completely ends. He has like 140 supply or something, 130 supply. I'm on 70. He is gonna get detection eventually. My probe count isn't even that great. He probably still has more than me. More units, more control. I don't even have enough anti-air to kill his phoenixes at this point. And at this point, I decided it's time to leave the game. He was indeed at like 130 supply, and I was at 60ish. So yeah, not quite brilliant. Well, if you want, I take a look at the game, the early game, and I'm like, I'm an idiot. I should have just built a battery. Just check everything to be sure, to make sure I don't lose to it again, because I do want to play another game of 1 gate expand. I was pretty happy with my conclusions, and I was just that I'm an idiot. It's very nice when you're going over your replay and you're trying to figure out a solution, is to figure out that you're just an idiot. And in this case, I did realize, hey, I'm actually an idiot. So yeah, that's nice. Just a battery would have fixed this problem. Take a sip of my glass and we go into the next game. Beautiful. Try my hands a little bit on my shirt. My palms are sweaty. These weeks, arms are heavy. There's vomit on my sweater already. Mom spaghetti. No, actually I was feeling pretty comfortable right now. I knew exactly what my mistake was, and I felt like it was very unlikely that he was going to do the same strategy again. But I still had it in mind as something like, okay, I now know kind of how to counter that, and that made me happy, obviously, because it's important to know how to counter things. I decided that it was time to perhaps even open with a robo if I needed to, but I also was completely down with the Stargate. You know, if I truly needed to make a Stargate, I was completely down with that plan. So just open up with once again my 1 gate. I actually also feel very comfortable with 2 gate, but right now I'm in a real good 1 gate mood, so I'm just kind of planning on playing 1 gate for a very long time. It's kind of exciting, play 1 gate. The games are always, how do you call that? Non-symmetrical, which means the decision making is very big and it's very fun to get early game leads. Now I did manage to block the gateway. Remember that I didn't manage to do it in the first game. Sadly, I gave him slightly too much space and he also gets the gateway out, which is yikers. I get a cybernetic score. And I want to get a Zealot immediately, obviously. And now I see something that is gonna confuse me massively. And that is this. I see a Zealot building on the gateway. So you see, I'm weighing this and I'm thinking, okay, if you build a Zealot, this means you're cutting out 2 workers because you're going to get supply blocked on the 21-23 when you're playing 2 gate. So that means 2 workers. The only reason someone would do this is if they're proxying. There's no other reason. So I'm completely expecting a proxy here and some major pressure. I'm thinking of a proxy Stargate specifically. I decide I'm gonna build my Stargate in the wall, but slightly further to the back. Battery in the front. I'm gonna try to figure out exactly where he is. I still want to get a nexus because that's important. Perhaps my battery was a bit too fast, but I was afraid of him like building a pylon in my wall. I'm gonna go and find his Zealot because I know he's on the map. You can do this, and I'm looking for the Stargate. I now realize there's no Stargate close by my house, and it's pissing me off. Because if there's no Stargate close by my house, it means that he kind of faked me out. And I don't know what that means. Like, I just don't quite understand what's going on. I'm not seeing any adapts. I could have built a Nexus now, and I get supply block. This is really painful. I wasn't quite prepared for this scenario. I now realize I'm supply block. I'm like, alright, crap, I'll get a Nexus. I know he's not all-inning me though. It could still be a proxy Stargate, or I don't know, he's not all-inning me, but I know he's not proxy Stargating me. At least not close by. I'm still kind of afraid of an Oracle in my main. And funnily enough, if he had gone for an Oracle in my main, he probably would have won this game again. I'm really late with my battery one more time. This game was very weird though, so I'll forgive myself. Yeah, this doesn't look great. I'll admit it. Okay, guys, it doesn't look great. This looks, yeah, not quite brilliant. I see no Nexus. I'm like, holy crap, this is bad. I'm being all in. I build a forge because I want to get cannons. I full wall with the forge. Still only see 2 stalkers. I'm really confused. The battery in the main base, I let it finish up. I get another void ray. I'm like, okay, what is going on here, guys? Like, I actually have no clue what's happening. I see no tech once I go into his main base, if I recall correctly. I see pro production and a sentry though. And in my head I'm like, okay, this makes absolutely no sense. Like, what's going on? And I make a last second decision to actually cancel the forge. I'm still not sure what I want to do with it, but I decide, okay, I'm just gonna get I'm just gonna get another forge. And then I'm gonna send out a worker to scout, because the thought of a proxy base is now entering my mind. I get an oracle because I'm afraid of DTs. I mean, we haven't seen much of anything, and DTs wouldn't be completely unlikely. I get a Twilight, I get a Robo, still afraid of DTs, obviously. And I'm trying to build as many workers as possible. I now realize he 100% has a proxy base, or he's playing Blink. But I don't know which one it is, and obviously that's very painful that I don't know which one it is, but yeah. No, it's just painful. Actually, there's really not much else, just really quite painful. He's getting a Dark Shrine. I see it. I also see that he has no Stalkers here, and I do have an Oracle on the way. Sadly, he's gonna spot my Oracle with a gateway that he had proxies on the map. He had a very weird build order. I have absolutely no clue what this build is, but yeah, that's life, I guess. Oh, I micro my Oracle a little bit. I get a single worker and decide to put it in the dead space. I go into an observer. I get my blink and I'm like, okay, his DTs are not going to be able to do anything, which is very, very nice. And I'm gonna get a forge from here on out. I see that he didn't have gas at his natural base, which is at his like 5th or 6th base location. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what the situation is here, you know. Am I winning? Am I losing? I'm seeing a battery, and I'm hoping that he doesn't have stalkers here. I'm gonna end up getting 4 or 5 workers, which is really nice. I think he has blink already, or he's very close. I still see something researching, so I was kind of afraid there. I throw down a revelation, and I keep my oracle alive, which is really big, because it allows me to throw down perhaps future stasis wards if he doesn't leave anything there. I have this probe here, and I'm like, hey, I can just scout if he has an extra base. Here I realize he doesn't have an extra base. Then I build a pylon here. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be pretty smart. If I just build a pylon here, like what's the worst thing that can really happen? I see his hallucination scout. I'm like, hey, how many sentries does he really have? I'm just thinking this to myself, you know? Very curious, how many does he have? I don't go quite in yet, and I'm like, hey, maybe it's possible for me, because I do have a pylon on his side of the map, to get a Dark Shrine going. I feel pretty safe. I have my blink, my +1. So I'm gonna get 2 adepts first. I'm like, hey, maybe I can get a play there. And I kind of go for the double, the wombo combo. So I move out with my adept, then I go in with my oracle, and at the same time I'm trying to take a 3rd base. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on him while I'm taking a 3rd base. So I'm queuing up that stasis. Not the greatest micro here with the adepts, I have to admit. I think I accidentally A-move. And here I lose my oracle in a really dumb way, because I didn't think he would have 3 stalkers. I thought it would be 2 stalkers max. So yeah, a little bit unfortunate. Take out this DT though, and he starts moving on the map. I'm like, huh, wait a second. I don't think he actually has a 3rd base yet. So in my mind I'm like, if I just get DTs and I can snipe observers while I have a battery behind me, I think I'm gonna always be able to survive. And more so, I have that pylon still over there. If I get a Dark Shrine myself and I can warp in some DTs, that's gonna be pretty big. The game is super chaotic though, and I have no clue what my position is. I don't know what he's doing, I don't know what I'm doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's getting a 3rd base on his 3rd base location, while his natural still isn't taken. I guess it doesn't really matter if he gets it there or at his natural. I see that he's only on 3 gas. I see he has a Dark Shrine. I'm like, okay, if I get battery cannon, I'm gonna be fine. And I'm so afraid right now that I'm gonna die before my Dark Shrine finishes. I also have +2 on the way already, so I'm getting good upgrades. Getting a little bit of map vision with stalkers. I'm getting a little bit of map vision with probes. I see, hey, there's a couple of stalkers there. Hey, that's a lot of units. Hey, there's a bunch of units moving towards my natural. I'm like, okay, he probably wants to do some multitasking. So I keep some stalkers, like semi on the side of my natural. Like not super in my natural, but kind of in my natural. And then I decide, warp a couple more. It's very important as well that I'm there with some stalkers in case a hallucination comes from upstairs. My Dark Shrine is in the middle after all, and now my Dark Shrine finishes. And I saved 3 Dark Shrine boys, so 3 DTs. I cancel 1 more probe so I can actually get them. Rally up these DTs, and there we go. We now have DTs going in every single base. I wanna, like, I'm just praying that there's no cannons. If there's a cannon at every single base, I can still kill like 8-9 workers, but if he doesn't have any cannons, I do see an observer pop right here, then he's gonna be in a world of trouble. And he's in a world of trouble right now. I kill like 9-10 workers in a couple of seconds. There's like, what, 3-4 workers here. Try to keep at least 1 DT alive. DT in the main ended up dying. Not sure how much it did, but I do think that at this point I'm kind of ahead. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. Like, I could be ahead, I could be behind. I don't know what his upgrades are. I don't know really what his infrastructure is like. Like, I haven't seen his army in really the past 8 minutes. I've seen 4 Stalkers and 1 Zealot, and I've seen a bunch of Stalkers and Sentry move on the map, but I haven't seen his main army anywhere, and it's been pissing me off. I'm gonna get 2 Archons here out of those 4 DTs. You see a prism, and I'm like, okay, what is this? This is interesting. I have a Zealot, and I'm mainly using this Zealot for scouting. Like, I'm just so curious. I'm like, hey, what's happening here? I'm getting a +3 upgrade already, and I'm accidentally moving on the map. It's not like kind of part of the goal. Here I'm like, hey, wait a second. He hardly has any workers here. And he has a lot of Stalkers. Here I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot of Stalkers. I try to run out with these. And now that I find myself on the map, I'm like, hey, you know what? I have these DTs here. He already used his recall, I remember that. Why don't I run into his main base, take out his forge? I'm not sure if that +1 finished or if he cancelled it, by the way. I was like, or the +2, whatever it was. I think he didn't have any upgrades, so I'm like, okay. If I'm gonna kill this base, I just check if he's coming home to defend, or if he's gonna, you know, attack me. I probably, after killing the base, should have recalled immediately, but I thought, what if I clear a little bit more of his production? That probably wouldn't be too bad either, but that did mean that this initial defense got a little bit worse than it probably should have been. So yeah, now I'm trying to get back. Don't get everything in there, but I get a fair amount of units in there. I already wasted my super battery at this point though. Still have a cannon building in the back, which is going to be very helpful. I'm sending in some DTs, but he of course has observers. Now I don't quite know what the upgrades were as I was playing, but now I do know that he actually was on 0-0. He had no upgrades. I see that there's DT slashing me, so I'm trying to desperately get out an observer, or move a bit further towards the cannon. Build a couple of Zealots up here, but at this point I'm very confident that I am indeed winning. I mean, I just killed his entire production. These DTs are gonna end up dying, and at this point I think I pretty much know that I won the game. My units are gonna come back. GG. Whoop. You had a big swing of the arm. You don't want to be there. You get knocked out straight away. They call him the Mike Tyson from Rotterdam after all. Boom. Look how happy I look. Nice. Give finger guns to the camera because I all of a sudden remember that I was recording this. And that's going to be it for today's video. There's nothing else here, so thanks all for watching. Smash the like button if you want more of these, and hopefully I'll see you all next time for a new video. Bye bye.